The distress beacon had gone silent 3 days ago. According to Galactic Marine Protocol, Captain Rose Hammond stood before the holographic display in the command center of the GSS Valiant. Her jaw set as she prepared to make the declaration no commander wanted to make. Marine Eliam Cross, service number 7-74 Alpha 9, missing in action on Dracor Prime. Presumed deceased. The words tasted like ash in her mouth. The planet below them spun silently, its violet atmosphere swirling with storm systems that had prevented any rescue attempts. Dracor Prime was an uncharted world in the outer reaches, home to creatures the Galactic Council had deemed too dangerous for colonization. Eliam's reconnaissance pod had been hit by an ion storm during atmospheric entry, and his last transmission had been nothing but static and screaming metal. Rose closed her eyes, remembering Eliam's eager face during the mission briefing. He was young, barely 23 standard years, but he had that peculiar human quality that made the other species in the Galactic Marine Corps both admiring and nervous, an absolute refusal to give up. "Ma'am." Her Zentari first officer clicked his mandibles nervously. "The Council wants us to move to the next quadrant. There are more pressing—" "I know what the Council wants," Rose interrupted, her voice sharp. She looked at the planet one more time. "Log it. Marine Cross, KIA. Departed with honors." Far below, in a ravine deep within Dracor Prime's crimson forests, Eliam Cross was very much not dead, though he wished he were. His left leg was definitely broken, maybe 3 ribs too. The crash had torn his pod apart like paper, scattering his supplies across a kilometer of hostile terrain. He'd managed to drag himself into a cave as nightfall came, and now he lay against the cool stone, his emergency medkit providing just enough pain suppressors to keep him conscious. The local wildlife had been interested in him. Creatures that looked like 6-legged panthers with too many eyes had circled his position twice. He'd fired his plasma pistol until the power cell ran dry, and now he had nothing but a combat knife and his stubborn human will. "Come on. Cross," he muttered to himself, his breath fogging in the cave's chill air. "You didn't survive the Battle of Proxima Station just to become lizard food on an uncharted rock." That's when he heard it, a soft chirping sound, almost like birds but deeper, more resonant. 3 small creatures emerged from the shadows at the back of the cave. They were no bigger than house cats, covered in iridescent scales that shifted from deep blue to purple in the dim light filtering through the cave entrance. They had elongated snouts, tiny wings folded against their backs, and eyes, intelligent, curious eyes, that fixed on Eliam with unmistakable interest. "Dragons," Eliam whispered, recognition flooding through his pain-fogged mind. The Council briefing mentioned dragons. Native apex predators, they said. Avoid at all costs, they said. The hatchlings, because that's what they had to be, tilted their heads in unison, studying him. The smallest one, barely the size of his hand, chirped again and took a tentative step forward. Eliam didn't move. He'd learned in survival training that most predators responded to fear and aggression, so he did what felt completely insane. He smiled. "Hey there, little ones. I'm Eliam. I'm pretty messed up here, not gonna lie." The smallest hatchling approached, sniffing at his broken leg. Eliam winced as pain shot through him, but he kept still. The creature's eyes, a brilliant amber color, met his own, and for a moment Eliam felt something pass between them. Understanding, empathy? The hatchling turned its head back toward the shadows and made a trilling call. 2 more hatchlings emerged, then 5, then a dozen. They surrounded Eliam, their tiny bodies warm against his cooling skin, and he realized with a shock that they were sharing their body heat. But that wasn't all. The smallest one, Eliam mentally named her Spark, pressed her snout against his broken leg. A soft golden glow emanated from her scales, spreading across his injury like warm honey. The pain began to recede, not completely, but enough that Eliam could breathe without agony lancing through his chest. "You're healing me." Eliam's voice cracked with wonder. Over the next hours, the hatchlings took turns. They brought him things, strange fruits from the forest that tasted like cinnamon and electricity, water dripping from cave formations, even what looked like medicinal moss that they carefully placed on his wounds. Spark never left his side, her small head resting on his chest, her warmth seeping into his battered body. Eliam learned to communicate with them through simple gestures and sounds. They responded to his voice, seemed to understand his emotions. When he was in pain, they huddled closer. When he tried to joke to keep his spirits up, they chirped in what he could only describe as laughter. Days passed. His leg began to heal, not fully, but enough that he could put weight on it with the makeshift splint the hatchlings had somehow helped him construct. The creatures brought him food regularly, always the same nutritious fruits and what he suspected was some kind of protein-rich insect paste that didn't taste as bad as it looked. On the 5th day, Spark led him deeper into the cave system. The other hatchlings followed, creating a protective formation around their wounded human. They emerged in a vast underground cavern, where a pool of luminescent water reflected light from crystalline formations above. At the water's edge lay wreckage, parts of his reconnaissance pod, including his emergency transmitter. Eliam's hands shook as he examined it. The power cell was dead, but the core components looked intact. With the basic tools he'd salvaged and an almost reckless amount of hope, he began to work. The hatchlings watched, Spark perched on his shoulder, as he rewired circuits and prayed to every deity humans had ever invented. When he finally pressed the activation button, nothing happened. Then Spark chirped, and the smallest hatchling pressed its snout against the transmitter. That golden glow returned, flowing into the device like liquid light. The transmitter sparked, hummed, and burst to life. Marine Eliam crossed to any galactic vessel in range. I'm alive. Repeat. I am alive and requesting extraction. Captain Rose Hammond nearly fell out of her command chair when the transmission came through. The Valiant was 2 systems away, but she ordered an immediate course reversal. Regulations be damned. When the rescue shuttle touched down in the coordinates Eliam provided, Rose herself led the team. What she found made her stop in her tracks. Eliam Cross limped out of the forest, his uniform torn and dirty, his face scarred but smiling. And surrounding him, chirping and clicking protectively, were 24 dragon hatchlings, with the smallest one perched on his shoulder like she owned him. Captain, Eliam saluted as best he could. Sorry for the delay. Had some unexpected allies. Rose looked at the hatchlings, at the way they formed a protective circle around the young Marine, at the clear bond between human and creatures that the Galactic Council had deemed irredeemably hostile. She smiled. This was so very, very human. Welcome back, Marine Cross. Looks like you made some friends. As they prepared for extraction, the smallest hatchling, Spark, refused to leave Eliam's side. The others trilled their goodbyes, but she remained firm, her amber eyes fixed on her human with absolute devotion. Eliam looked at Rose. Permission to bring a +1 aboard, Captain? Rose laughed. Granted. Something tells me the Galactic Council is going to have a lot of questions. Let them ask, Eliam said, scratching Spark under her chin as she purred. Humans have always had a way with dragons. We just needed to find the right ones. The Valiant lifted off from Dracor Prime, carrying a Marine who had been declared dead, and a dragon hatchling who had decided that humanity was worth saving. It was a small moment in the vast galaxy, but it was also quintessentially human. Finding friendship in the most impossible places, surviving against all odds, and proving once again that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their ships. It was their ability to connect, to hope, and to never, ever give up. The end.